Hello, can I welcome people to the GLA Oversight Committee. Apologies for starting late. Welcome to those who are watching on the webcast. Can I remind you to turn off all your phones or put them on silent. Many of you will know Assembly Member Bacon MP has recently stepped down from this committee in view of his election as Member of Parliament for Orpington. Assembly Member Hall is Assembly Member Bacon's replacement on this committee and has been appointed by Deputy Chairman of this committee. And can we welcome Assembly Member Hall to this committee? Sadly, even though that's been the case, in the odd and bizarre world we live in of rules and procedures, Susan Hall, Assembly Member Hall, will not be the Deputy Chair of this committee for this meeting because the papers, when they were put into the public domain, don't allow that, or our rules don't allow it, which is odd and strange. But nevertheless, we work in an odd and strange world as politicians. Can I begin by asking for apologies for absence?
Apologies for absence have been received from Assembly Member O'Connell and for whom Assembly Member Devonish is substituting.
And just to say to members and officers in attendance, we're going to move through this agenda pretty briskly, and therefore in terms of when we ask questions, if you could be as brisk as Mark in terms of how you answer us. Okay, because it's a fairly straightforward agenda, like he says, with some trepidation as we go into it. Item 2, declarations of interest. Can we note the list of officers held by Assembly members? Can I also ask members if there are any disclosable pecuniary interest in specific items listed on the agenda?
Noted.
Can I register a non-pecuniary interest on item 7 as the Mayor's Armed Forces champion? I have had some involvement in the development of that that's coming before you. As of what I've said earlier on, I will, because it's non-pecuniary, I will stay in the chair but not really take part in the debate and give you an opportunity to question the officers if there are any issues arising from that. That's not me ducking any questions, but it may be more appropriate you want to focus on the technical aspects of that policy rather than talking to me generally about why we need it. Okay, no other declarations. Can we move on to the minutes then? Can I ask the committee to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of December 2019 to be signed as me as a correct record? Can I then ask you to look at item 4, summary list of actions? Can I draw your attention? So can we note the completed and standing actions arising from the previous meetings of the GLA Oversight Committee? If we can look at that. I've got a couple of issues that I want to refer to. Can I start with one, which is an election item there? I think there's an outstanding issue which you've promised to members around. I'm looking for Assembly Member Berry to help me just
a visit to see the counting system in action and the interfaces that the people representing candidates can look at and things.
Yes, so I did promise that, and in fact the Deputy GLRO, I saw a draft email to all members of the committee yesterday giving you a couple of dates in February, inviting you to that, which will be the training centre we're using in Haringey. And
is that fully operational at that point for us to see it, the full operation, as it were?
It will be fully operational on those 2 days.
Yes, great.
So we're inviting a number of groups of people in to have a look, but this committee is one of them.
Okay, and then I just want to draw to the attention of the committee and those that may be observing these proceedings. There are 3 appendices in item 11 of the summary list of actions report relating to the review commissioned by the Mayor into the London Partners procedures. It's not anything to do with actions by elected politicians, procedures concerning the Jennifer Akuri investigation. The Mayor's response and the completed reviews is in Appendix 1, 2, Appendix 3 as a response from London and Partners Chief Exec. Now I think, the reason why I want to draw this attention, I think we may have to do some work outside this meeting and not wait for, we're already committed to doing a scrutiny around some of the alleged activities of the former mayor. What we may need to do is get some clarity about some aspects of this review, and we may work that outside this meeting, but along with, we may wish to write to the mayor further. So just to give you a gist of that, there is rightly a focus on Londoner partners, and it does mention the role of the economic development team. It mentions less of a role of the international team, which all contribute and put inputs into various trade missions, particularly if a mayor or their nominees are present. So can we explore this further outside this meeting to bring it back? And we probably our timeline for this is probably to deal with this piece of work before Herder, to give you a timeline.
Delegate to you to
So we need to delegate the normal protocols. I think delegate to me in conjunction with the deputy chair and other political leaders about pursuing those.
Agreed.
Okay, if that's it, agreed. Thank you for that. Let's move then on to item 5, Secretary Quarterly Monitoring Report. Are members have had an opportunity to read this report? Are there any questions you want to ask of Rob? Okay, can we then, the committee is asked to note the Core Secretariat Quarterly Review for the third quarter 2019/2020, November 2019 to January 2020 brackets. Thank you. I'm now moving on to item 6, response to the Garden Bridge Working Party Report, Up the Garden Path, learning from the Garden Bridge projects. I've had an indication from Assembly Member Pidgeon that she wishes to raise an item.
Yeah, I read through the response, and I have to say, I thought TfL weren't being particularly helpful here, but also, we've raised that we think there are problems with the procurement process. But their answer throughout this is, oh, don't worry, in 2013 we brought in this wonderful system pathway, and that deals with everything. Well, the Garden Bridge started 2012, 2013 at the same time. So they had them at the same time. It's not like in response to this we brought this in. I felt they've missed the point of some of our recommendations. We've also got here the Garden Bridge project had different monitoring and approvals, so even though they had this wonderful system pathway, they didn't choose to use it. And then in recommendation 4, in their answer they say that pathway currently states that if a project has been delivered by a third party, they can use any other system. They don't have to use this wonderful system which is the solution to all the problems we raised. So I felt we should go back and push them on that, particularly as in recommendation 4 they're saying they're going to examine if they should make any changes. It doesn't commit to it. I just think we should push them further to really tighten up on this, and I was hoping we could do a follow-up letter from John.
Any other contributions?
I'm happy to do a follow-up letter.
Should we do that in the normal protocols that we've got and involve the working party if those are outside that, to make sure everyone's included, and we will work up a further response?
Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, so we're asked to note the responses. We've then, with that addition that I've already outlined, for a further letter to Mike Brown and to the Mayor of London on this topic. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Let's move on to item 7. I've already indicated non-pecuniary interest. This is the opportunity for members to either ask further questions about this policy to officers. Do you want an introduction from officers or go straight into questions?
Straight in.
Thank you. Right, Assembly Member Devenish.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this policy. Just a little bit more detail, if possible, in terms of context. Do we know the numbers of serving staff that are in the Army, Navy, RAF, Marine Reserve, etc.? Question 1. Question 2, could we include the police specials and other equivalent people that do a great job?
The second question.
The police specials, will they be covered by this policy, and if there are other services that also have reserve equivalents? Because I think this is an issue that we do need to give these wonderful people all support we can. And will there be any targets in terms of how we encourage participation by GLA family staff in our reserve services?
The number of current active reservists is less than 5. I don't say the exact number in case they could be identified. And actually on that point, my team, with the encouragement of our champion, Assembly Member Duval, met with them ahead of this meeting, and they gave some feedback on the policy. They will stay close with us as we start to make sure that it's working. But they made the point that many active reservists may not necessarily tell their employers that they are reservists if their employers are not receptive and encouraging of that. So there could be more, which is why I make that point, but at the moment we know of a small number within the organisation who are active. Your second point was around other public duties that we give support to, and I think you particularly mentioned police and special constables. Our current policy looks at public duties and gives an equivalent number of days or a number of days if it's less to other duties such as a member of a local authority, local health authority, a justice of the peace, school governors, etc., trade unions and others. It doesn't specifically mention police, but I'll take that away and come back to you specifically on that point. But we do have a volunteering policy which we encourage staff to take up. We give 3 days of volunteering time within work hours. We know, of course, many people volunteer in their non-work hours as well to do that, and we've embedded that through our performance management policy so that people know about the policy, they're encouraged, it's in our corporate induction, etc. So that participation, we can drive that participation up. I know colleagues in Team London who lead on participation are doing some work currently on the group position on volunteering. I can't comment on the other group policies and whether they give the same equivalent in terms of general volunteering, but for this reservist policy, this brings us in line with the rest of the group.
And targets? Are you ultimately responsible for trying to encourage more participation with these wonderful organisations? I mean, who in the GLA family is it who is responsible, and are there going to be some targets to try and make sure that we don't just have a policy in a drawer somewhere, that we actually encourage actively?
So I certainly lead here in the GLA. We have a number of groups to the Leading by Example group, for example, includes representatives from the group, and we take these types of issues there. But I'm not responsible for setting targets to the group.
I think it's generally fair to say that the armed covenant is the way that we force issues around that. And there is elements within that armed covenant that allude to where I think you want to pursue, and maybe we come back with another note. The equivalent to me on the officer side is still being determined, as you will understand. It would be very helpful to have someone, and I'm having conversations with the head of paid service.
Thank you, Chair.
So I think that might answer that issue.
Chair, I'll take a note to make sure I come back on the police point.
Assembly Member Arnold.
Yeah, Chair, I totally support of this policy and the way it's developed. I remember a few years ago when there wasn't a such policy, and it was very ad hoc as to who it would depend whether or not, I suppose, you got on with your manager or what have you. So it's always great to move away to a policy position. I do, though, want to flag up that if we're going to be talking about targets for one particular group, that it would have to be then that we're looking across the piece. I mean, for me personally, I think it's as important that people get time off to become magistrates. It's, for me, important enough for people, if they wanted to really get into the youth, you know, the guiding and the what have you, because to become an arcaler, you have to have time off to go and do your training. I was once such a thing. So you would expect that, wouldn't you, Sean? She hangs her head down. Is that in shame or wonder?
I love that kind of thing. That's good.
But I just do think that we just have to have some sort of perspective about this, that we're talking about our staff who are diverse and wonderful and what have you, and I don't believe that there should be a position where we're looking to push to promote the armed forces in a sense rather than any other voluntary activity that we support our staff. It's just my view.
There has been a further discussion outside this room on it. I think the issue is part of the volunteering offer that we make our staff aware of, and there is lots of our staff who do lots of volunteering, that we would include this as an opportunity of volunteering. And I think you mentioned the police specials, and I think we would ask, because it's not necessarily HR. HR is about offering personnel support both to managers and employees about what happens when you're in certain situations. And I think Jeanette's clearly right about the ad hoc nature of where we were before. This gives clarity both to the employer as well as the employee in a very good way, I think, that puts it. But what we want to do is look at that offer, because there is an offer and it does suit some people and who want to do that commitment around on it, and we need to promote the widest sense of that offer. I suspect there is a target for volunteering from long time ago about generally where it is, and so in terms of the round. But Jeanette's right, there are a number of opportunities of where people contribute over and above in terms of to civic life, and anything that gives clarity to that and that policy is fine. I think it's important that we just make people aware of the opportunity of volunteering to be a reservist, because we do get something back as an organisation. We are contributing to a national need, which I think is quite important of where things are in terms of policy, national policy lead development is, and some people may not be aware of it. But I think it has to be done in the round.
Yeah.
Could I make a couple of points? Just firstly, Jeanette, just to reassure you, yes, we give up to 5 days to do Justice of the Peace training. I actually happen to know that that's more than sufficient upon appointment. It's about 3 or 4 days of training that a new Justice of the Peace would undertake. And then, of course, staff can use their ongoing volunteer days to take their top-up training for an activity such as that. I probably want to just draw some members' attention to the fact that in reading this policy, you'll see there's quite a lot about how you have to support a reservist who returns to work. And that's very different from other volunteering type activities. There's some set days that we need to employ them. They give us a set amount of notice, and if they have been, for example, posted on active duty, there might be a whole set of issues about supporting them in their return to work and their mental health. So I do think this is right in that it goes further for this specific, quite special type of volunteering, which is very different, for example, to Justice of the Peace or school government.
Are there any further questions? Okay, so we're asked to, I think we've responded. I think it'll be a mixture of you, Charmaine, and Mary, in terms, because some of it's outside HR, in terms of some of the issues that members have asked. We will, obviously this will be reviewed in HR policies in the future as and when, if things change. Thank you very much. We're asked to note this and the additional requests from members. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, GLA Oversight Committee Work Programme. The committee is asked to note the work programme for 2019/20 Assembly year as set out in the report. Identify any issues it wishes to consider at future meetings. Okay, can we note that, and we'll probably continue this conversation outside this meeting.
Could I make a couple of points? We will definitely, from HR, be bringing some new policies to the February meeting, new HR policies for consultation to the February meeting. That will likely be on support for bereavement support for parents, which is also a statutory change. And then in March, at least 2 or 3 policies around secondments, dignity at work, and equality and diversity.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on then. Item 9, date of the next meeting. Date of the next meeting will be Wednesday, 26th of February 2020 at 10 a.m. in Committee Room 5 in City Hall. I'm moving on to item 10. Any other business? I've got no urgent business. I think I've got a little bit of time if there's anything else that Assembly members want to raise. Thank you very much. I'm now ending this meeting. Thank you.
Yes.